And you're welcome to the bulletin. The acting president of the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, NAPS, Dr. Damasus Truosong, is calling for a full-scale reopening of all pre-tertiary schools as government prepares to announce the reopening of learning centers. Now, the information minister last week said President Akufo-Addo is receiving briefings from the COVID-19 Technical Task Force on limited school reopenings. Mr. Akufo-Addo is expected to take a firm decision on school reopening in January 2021 after a cabinet meeting today. So what would be the safest way to reopening schools without endangering students and teachers? Joining us to discuss this, our president of NAPS, Dr. Damasus Truosong, president of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, CHAS, Alhaji Ahmed bin Yakub Abubakar, and executive director of Africa Education Watch, Kofi Asare. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Let me begin with you, Dr. Truosong. It's your position that schools should be reopened immediately. Why?
Thank you so much for this opportunity and my wishes to your listeners. The reason why we are calling for full-scale reopening of schools is the fact that we've been down for 10 months going. Now, the effect of this on our educational system is very dire. COVID-19 was used as the main reason why schools were closed down, which was a tenable reason at the time this happened in March. But so many months down the line, we have seen a containment of the virus. Yes, it's true that the numbers have inched up a little. But recently, the numbers are coming down again to about 800 and something as we speak now, having at some point reached 1,000. So we do not find it necessary to keep our schools shut in the name of COVID-19 because of the impact this is having on our educational system. Remember that we have done some pilots with partial reopenings, and we have learned how to manage this virus in our various schools. So we do not think that people should be talking about staggered reopening of schools anymore. We think the time is ripe and the time is now for us to have full-scale reopening of schools at all pre-tertiary levels.
Let me take that thought to Alhaji Ahmed Abubakar, who is the president of CHAS. Alhaji, do you agree with Dr. Truosong of NAPS that the disease is contained enough? Of course, we are seeing a new strain of diseases being reported in a number of European countries. Some say that we should be more careful now. What's your position, Mr. Abubakar? Right, Alhaji Abubakar, if you can hear me, I'm asking what your position is on this matter of reopening. Okay, let me speak to Kofi Asare rather whilst Alhaji prepares himself. Kofi, what are your thoughts on what NAPS is saying so far?
Well, good morning to your cherished audience. Season's greetings as well. I think that schools have been closed for quite a long time, 9 months. It's a very long period of time to stay at home, especially for students in rural areas who have very limited access to virtual learning systems and technologies, including the Ghana Learning Television, which is on digital TV. So in view of this, it is very, very expedient to reopen schools. Having said that, it is also important for us to recognize that the COVID-19 protocols and advisory that UNESCO issued to member countries, including Ghana, be observed. We are lucky in the sense that we have piloted reopening in two different phases. First for the WASI and then second for the BECE. And so we have an idea about how to reopen school, taking into cognizance the requirement of 1 meter physical distancing in the class and observance of COVID health and safety protocols. And so insofar as we are ready to oblige or conform to the 1 meter physical distancing arrangement in the class as prescribed by the health authorities and as prescribed by the JNES in its own reopening guidelines of July, nothing should stop us from reopening the entire pre-tertiary education system.
Now, you mentioned, Mr. Sari, that we did see a pilot of reopening when just the final years went to school, but that was one stream. And we still had infrastructure challenges with keeping the 1 meter distancing. Are we able to contain the entire student population in January?
No country in the world has been able to contain the entire student situation at a go. In countries like in Switzerland, in Netherlands, and other countries that reopen schools very, very much earlier in the day, they are all running school in batches. There are countries where a group of people go to school on Monday and Tuesday. The next group will go to school on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And the next week, the group that had 2 days will do 3 days and then 2 days. In our part of the world, we are used to the shift system. And so if schools with high class sizes that cannot reasonably distance within the 1 meter regulation of UNESCO and GES will definitely have to run morning and afternoon shifts. And then schools that have the capacity to accommodate all their students within the 1 meter physical distancing, especially most of the private schools, should be allowed to run their system. The most important thing is that you run the class with 1 meter distancing of desks within the classroom. So again, that's what I'm saying. We are used to the shift system, and it should be possible for us to adjust to this 1 meter physical distancing, operate class sizes of between 30-35, and still run the school in either shifts, or when you go to rural areas where class sizes are smaller, they can do their regular schooling. Let me indicate that the impact of COVID on education is highly a matter of spacing. It's a matter of, having a fixed asset, which is space, okay? And so you need to vary the extent to which you can efficiently use the space to accommodate the demands of the virus. And so everywhere in the world, schools are taking place in batches. That is either someone goes today, tomorrow, and the other person goes the next day, or in shifts. And so we are used to the system, and okay. I foresee cabinet sanctioning something, in the likes of schools with higher class sizes, adapting the shift system, so that everyone should be given an opportunity to go to school in the coming academic year.
Dr. Chosong, if we are to go to school in shifts or batches, would it not affect the quality of the teaching and learning? I know that, for instance, the double track system in senior high schools has been criticized heavily because stakeholders say it has affected quality.
Well, the evidence that is available, on the contrary, is that results from students who graduated from the double track system were better than some previous years. So just like Mr. Asare said, we have tried this shift system before. And for us, private schools, indeed, this was our recommendation from day one. Why? Because, you see, you cannot close down the schools indefinitely. Ways have to be found. And what are the ways? In our situation, we have smaller class sizes already. For majority of our private schools, we already have small class sizes. So it might be possible for us to even run without adopting any shift system. For the public schools, they can either go morning and evening, as you have indicated, or adopt some other innovative ways of going around this. It is always better to have some amount of education than no education at all. So even if quality is challenged, it is still better to have some taste of education and keep the children's minds agitated with learning rather than to go dormant with nothing happening in the schools all this while. Because you see, is the school closure is not just having an impact academically. There are socio-economic effects of this on the children, on parents, on proprietors of schools as well. And this cannot continue forever.
We understand, Mr. Asare, that the economic challenges associated with COVID are very large. This is another bill, isn't it? Government has to provide PPEs for all of these students and the teachers. The hand sanitizers are needed. The disinfectants are needed. Have you seen enough commitment from government in the past to show that a reopening in January would run smoothly with the provision of all these materials?
I think government has demonstrated enough capacity to supply PPEs and other essentials for COVID, both in the education sector and the health sector. I think we've gone beyond the point of resource availability because government has been able to even provide free water and electricity. And so I think that our challenges to a high extent does not include resources to provide PPE, sanitizers, face masks. No. The challenge is how to ensure that the distribution of these PPEs is done efficiently and effectively, in the sense that we have a system that is centralized. The senior minister's office procures PPEs. It goes through the RCCs, gets to the regional education directorates, district education directorates, and then school heads are asked to come to the district education office for them. That's why 1 week after reopening, you still find schools without PPEs. We have advocated, we have recommended to government that it is high time we decentralize the procurement of PPEs, because it is difficult for me to imagine a district where you can't have liquid soap to buy, you can't have face masks to buy. Everything that is purchased as PPEs, especially the consumables, are available in any district, not to warrant the centralization of its procurement. If we're able to do that, and we're able to commission agents to deliver the PPEs to schools and not ask headmasters to come to the district directorates to pick them up, knowing very well that there is no money. Capitation grant hasn't been released. We will still be having challenges with timely receipts of PPEs in schools. And so the issue is about efficiently distributing PPEs and ensuring that they arrive ahead of reopening. But in terms of resource availability, I think that is very, very low on our challenge list. We are confident that with the two experiences that we've had, reopening schools in piloted phases, we should be in a better position to take, government should be in a better position to take a robust decision which will encompass the challenges that we face. And for that matter, prefer solutions or strategies that will not repeat the challenges we had in the two previous experiences of reopening.
Mr. Asare, it's a great point you raised there, and it will be a good point to bring in the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. Alhaji Ahmed bin Abubakar is the president. He's joined us via telephone this time. Alhaji, very quickly, your concern has been about the provision of PPEs. You've been quoted very recently as saying that government must provide them before schools are reopened, if that is the plan. Would you agree with Mr. Asare on the other line that the problem is the distribution? And so these PPEs must be procured by the districts themselves and not by the central government?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And we all agree with the fact that the provision of the PPEs are necessary as far as we manage the situation at our school levels are concerned. And it is also factual that in the past two experiences we've had, there had been some level of delay in some cases in the supply of the PPEs. So therefore, if experience anything to go by, then it means authorities will have to look at it from that angle to see what were the impediments that resulted in the delays, and so what appropriate measures should be taken in addressing them. For now, we at the school level definitely cannot dictate to government or authorities as to how they should go about the distribution of it. What our concern will be is that they should do well to let their attempts get to the school level as early as possible to enable we, the school authorities, also plan our system and put things in place adequately so that as and when the students are reporting to the school, we are in a better position to receive them and ensure that they go by the protocols, because all those things would have been provided. For now, that is the quick response I can give.
Yes, I acknowledge when you say that you cannot dictate to government how it is done, but do you think that if it is procured in a decentralized manner, it would make it more effective, so that if you're in Kumasi, and I know you're with TI Amadea, you can just go to the district office and they are buying their own PPEs. They don't need to wait for Accra to bring those PPEs.
Excuse me, I think in the previous, especially the second round, that was what happened. They brought it to the regional, in some cases the district levels, and schools were asked to go to a particular point to pick them. We didn't depend on it directly from Accra by individual schools. They were decentralized to the regional levels and in some cases to the district levels before schools were made to go and pick them from points.
I'm actually asking about the procurement that these districts procure on their own, because in those cases, the districts were receiving them through the regional coordinating councils from the senior minister's office.
Well, like I earlier said, the issue of procurement is, as you are aware, issue. And so we believe that the authorities will take experience from the past two occasions that we had to reopen school and see where there are gray areas, especially with procurement. They see how they can address it and move forward. But I don't think we are in position as of now to tell the authorities that decentralize the procurement to district or what level. They have observed, they have experienced it, and I think they will do the needful.
Please hold on for us. Let me take that thought to Dr. Trosong of NAPS. Now, we know that NAPS as an organization has also faced some challenges. Dr. Trosong, your member schools say they've lost a lot of money over the past year when they were not operating. Are you able to mobilize the resources you need to support the procurement of these PPEs and even restart your businesses?
Just like what happened in the previous phased reopenings, government supported our schools by fumigating the schools, by supplying us with PPEs just like the public schools, and in some cases, even providing feeding for some of our students. We expect going into the full-scale reopening that government will continue with the supply of PPEs to private schools as well. From the effects of this virus and the closure of schools on private educational sector, it is virtually impossible to allow us and ask us to procure everything on our own. It's not going to be possible for us to do that. So we expect that government is going to take us on board, not just in the supply of PPEs, but when it comes to some educational material, books, assisting us financially to resuscitate our businesses. We expect all those levels of support from government moving forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trosong. I'm going to take a final comment from Mr. Asare and Alhaji Abubakar. Mr. Asare, so what will be your final comment on this matter? NAPS, for instance, is asking that apart from the provision of PPEs, financial support is needed for business and the like.
Well, I think that the most important thing is that schools are reopening and the private schools will have an opportunity to take their fees and then bounce back to business. We appreciate the fact that over 100,000 of their teachers struggled to get a salary. We appreciate the fact that government didn't have any specific plan for private schools. The wholesale application of the coronavirus alleviation fund and that the MBSSI did not help private schools because it wasn't targeted. It was a very, very generic one with private schools receiving as low as 1,000 cedis of support and all that. But most importantly, it's an opportunity to reopen school and then create some income and then pay the teachers. It is very, very important, however, for government to give the same treatment that caused public schools to private schools at this point, because already they are coming from a weakened position where they have very, very low or no income streams for the past 9 months. And so PPEs and other essentials, including textbooks in the new, including copies of the new curriculum, training in the new, I'm talking about the junior high school curriculum training, which is currently about to start. All these interventions should be given to private schools. I'm aware that most private schools actually paid for the cost of training of their teachers when the primary school curriculum training was being rolled out, and then the sales of same. I think all this should be made free to the private schools so that we don't add insult to injury, because without them, a third of students in the pre-tertiary sector will not be able to re-enroll in school and continue the education. So it is very important for that support to be given by the state.
Kofi Asare, thank you very much for joining us. He is the Executive Director for Africa Education Watch. We were also joined by the President of the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, Dr. Damascus Trosong, and briefly on phone by the President of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, Alhaji Abubakar and Bin Yakub. You're live on JoyNews Desk with me, Daniel Daze. The National Democratic Congress has indicated that they will be heading to court today to challenge the presidential election results. We'll deal with that matter after this. Thanks for staying with us. Now let's get into that story. Private legal practitioner Samson-Ladi Ayeni is confident the Supreme Court can adjudicate any petition brought before it by the NDC in the stipulated 42-day period. Ahead of election 2020, the Judicial Service released a set of rules which stated that any case brought against the presidential election result will be dealt with in that period of time. Though the opposition NDC criticized the decision because of the merit of the case must be considered before the time for determining it is given, Mr. Ayeni believes enough procedural delays have been removed to allow for the swiftest possible determination of the case. He spoke on Prime Morning on Joy Prime TV.
I am thinking that the 42 days is just perfect. Now, remember that they have not just provided for 42 days. They have also done away with certain things which will limit the lawyers and the party from, the typical litigious attitude that drags a case. So after you file your case, initially, you were allowed to amend and to alter your case from time to time until judgment had been rendered. But with the new rules, once you file the case, you are not allowed by law to amend or to alter your case in a way that changes the reliefs that you have come to seek in the courts. Yes, so okay. And then only the presidential candidate of the aggrieved party is allowed to be the party who is going to sue. No other, the party itself is not allowed to join. Like in the 2013, you saw NDC join the suit. It's not allowed anymore. Okay. Again, the defendants to the case will remain only the Electoral Commission and the president whose election you are challenging. So the thing is narrowed, and this all will allow for the speed that the new rules provide for.
Right.
The reason the NDC is so concerned and is fighting in the way it is doing and is not listening to all the calls to get off the streets and to resort to the court, because that is the only place where any results can be changed, is that the NDC's prayer is that the very first day they enter parliament, they should be at least 138. That's been their struggle. So they need only one extra seat, and they would have formed the majority party going into parliament on the 7th. What that would mean for them is that they would have the opportunity to determine who becomes a speaker. Speaker is elected by simple majority. The only difficulty is that supposing they don't get this done and the speaker is elected now through some other party's machine. To remove the speaker, you need 3/4 of all members. All members sitting. That will mean 70% of all the members of parliament. So even if they went to court and won Techiman South or any other place, that is assuming that the NPP went to court and didn't win any of the seats. It is also right. Contesting. It will simply mean that the NDC cannot on its own remove the speaker, even if it forms a majority at a later time. That is their biggest concern, and the reason they insist that at least Techiman South should be resolved now, before January 7. And that is also the reason they are putting up such a spirited fight through their candidate in the Hohoi place. And remember, not only the speaker, but they will determine, whoever has a majority will determine majority leader. They will determine
the chairpersons
of all the committees in parliament.
Now, to shed more light on the issues having to do with the petition is Martin Kpebu. He is a private legal practitioner. He joins us via Zoom. So, Mr. Kpebu, we are expecting that the NDC will file their petition before the day is over. After that, what next?
Yeah, so basically, the rules provide that... Sorry, one second. The rules provide that once the petition is being filed, the president and the EC would be served. Upon service, they have 10 days to respond. So you see Sam touched on the 42 days earlier. The key thing to note is that the 42 days will only begin to count upon service. So the day of service is when the 42 days will begin to count. So if the president is not served for, let's say, 1 week after, and the same for the EC, the 42 days don't begin to count. Now, so let's assume that today, the president and the EC will be served after the filing. 10 days later, they are supposed to file their response. Then, by the 15th day, the court will be empaneled. And then the parties would appear before the court to prepare for the trial. That stage is called pre-trial. So at this stage, the court would look at the evidence. Is everything in order? If there, of course, some of the evidence is oral, but I'm talking about the one that is paper evidence or maybe objects and any other things. So they will check to see whether these are in order. If they are, and then the trial would be scheduled to start on the 16th day. So that by law, the trial is supposed to take 7 days. So from the 15th day to the 21st day, they are supposed to hold the trial and conclude same latest by the 21st day. Then the judges have 21 days to retire and prepare their verdict. So you see, it's 21 days. It's possible out of the 21, they can say, look, we are done in 10 days. All it is that the law has given them a maximum of 21 days to bring out their verdict. So that is what us have to get the 42, starting from the day that the president and the EC are served.
So, Mr. Kpebu, what's your expectation of the Supreme Court as it determines this matter? We know, for instance, that there will be a public viewing, a public telecasting of the trial process. But what do you expect the Supreme Court to bring to this case?
Well, so in terms of expectation, they are generally Okay, so a number of them. Let's start with the outcome. So the outcome is generally either a win or a loss. Remember what Dan Lati once said, that his running mate would either be a man or a woman. So generally, that's on the light side, either a win or a loss. But technically, this is what it boils down to. Either the NDC will be making a case that there have been so many violations that have affected the votes to such an extent that if the court discounts those votes that are affected, then either President Akufo-Addo did not get at least 50% of the votes, or Mr. John Dramani Mahama. So you see, I refer to NDC, not the NDC, sorry, it's Mr. Mahama himself, because NDC is not supposed to be a party. Yeah, so Mr. Mahama will make that case that he has won outright, or Mr. Akufo-Addo did not garner enough votes to get that 50+1. So we should go for a runoff. So these are the basic, or let me say the outcomes. But in getting to the outcome, back to your question, what is the expectation? One of my expectations is that, just as was done in 2012, this time round, the Supreme Court will once again grant permission that the proceedings be broadcast live, so that Ghanaians can get an opportunity to follow the proceedings. You know, transparency helps a lot. At least, even though most of our populace are not lawyers, but they are also reasonable human beings. So when they follow the evidence, they can also begin to judge for themselves, even before the Supreme Court comes with its decision. And usually, based on their own deductions and all that, it's easier for them to accept the verdict because they would have seen it played out. They would have seen the evidence. You say, rather than they don't get to see what happens, and then one day, boom, there is a verdict.
It happens like that. Mr. Akpebu, thank you so much for that education and giving the opinion there. Martin Akpebu, of course, is a legal practitioner here in the country. We are still monitoring the courts to see when the NDC presents that petition before the day is over. And your most credible news source will definitely bring you that. Remember, we're still your election headquarters. You're live on JoyNews Desk. The Roads Minister, Kwesi Amakwata, is asking the opposition NDC to graciously accept the outcome of the election petition as they prepare to head to the Supreme Court to contest results of the December 7 elections. Now, he asked also that the party should advise its supporters to refrain from the burning of tires on the roads, insisting such practices damage the roads. He asked the police to arrest and prosecute persons involved in the act, describing it as criminal. Now, the Roads Minister has also indicated that from January next year, government will begin dualization of all major road networks in the country. Mr. Amakwata, who insists the Akufo-Addo administration has constructed more roads than any government since the country gained independence, challenged the NDC to a debate on President Akufo-Addo's track record in the road sector.
Within the last 4 years, from independence, no government has worked on the road sector so massively than President Akufo-Addo has done. On the road sector, either bringing it to asphaltic level, or surface dressing, or construction of bridges, or interchanges. No government since independence, and the statistics are there. And I am prepared to debate anybody on this. The statistics are there. Since independence, no government has massively worked on the road sector than President Akufo-Addo has done. And it's going to continue. And there's going to be a significant feature in the road sector from January onwards.
Live on JoyNews Desk with me, Daniel Dazi. Darryl Kwao is next with business, and he'll be telling us how the managing director of Bank of Africa, Kobianda, is projecting a difficult year ahead for the Ghanaian economy.
Hi, good morning. Welcome to Business. My name is Daryl Kwao. The Managing Director of Bank of Africa, Kobi Anda, is projecting a difficult year ahead for the Ghanaian economy. According to him, the large financing gap as well as the hung parliament will be a major challenge. Nonetheless, he's urging businesses to remain resolute. He said the bank's strategy for the coming year will be to enhance its digital offerings.
We're going heavily into digital. We'll introduce a lot of digital products for our customers, a lot of innovation in the way we deliver our service. Our corporate customers, our SME customers, our retail customers should expect more satisfaction, more of a bank that thinks about how to satisfy the customer's needs than a bank that is just there to provide services for the sake of it. So it's going to be an exciting year. We know it's going to be a difficult year in terms of the economy. We know where we stand with our fiscal deficit. We know we have a hung parliament now, so it's going to be more difficult than usual, but the resilience of the Ghanaian would make sure that we meet next year at this time, God willing, with a smile on our face, happy that we went through the difficult times successfully.
Now, Ghana's attempt to attain rice efficiency is receiving a boost as 3 new varieties by the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research triumphed on the test field. The varieties Enapa, Kentinka, and Amakwetia were able to resist the rice blast disease. There's more in this report.
Stakeholders in the agriculture sector have been meeting annually to identify key issues in agriculture and present findings to the government for intervention. In 2019, it came up rice farmers at Akuma Wabieja North, one of the largest producers of rice, have been facing problems with the blast disease and rice yellow mottled virus.
Unfortunately, farmers are not getting good seed. Some of them go to the milling center for their seed. Others to use seed for several seasons. And because of that, we developed diseases like rice blast.
The government, through the Modernizing Agriculture in Ghana MARC project with support from the Canadian government, aided CSIR-CRI to set up a rice disease verification trial at Abra, meant to help farmers manage the diseases. The project involved 3 interventions: the introduction of newly released varieties to farmers, proper land preparation, and application of pesticides.
We set out this trial basically to bring 3 interventions. One is improve varieties, or let's say release variety. We have CRI Napa, CRI Kentinka, and CRI Amankwetia. And we also got 2 varieties from the farmers, that is Lapez and Agra, so that we'll put the 5 varieties in a particular condition and subject it to maybe the disease inoculum in the environment. So aside the variety, we're also bringing in the intervention of land preparation. You can see that we've raised bands, and during the land preparation stage, we did paddling and then leveling, so that will help manage water and weeds in the field. Aside that too, we also introduced to them some fungicide and insecticide to manage the disease. And today we have all appreciated that the 3 interventions put together has resulted in the varieties showing up some sort of tolerance or resistance to the disease. And so the farmers have already ranked their varieties. And luckily for us, all the 3 varieties from Crop Research Institute fall within the first 3. And so we are now waiting to see the yield, and the farmers will also go and cook it and taste it, so that at the end of the day, the adoption will be complete. They have ranked it. They need to taste it and then also attest to it and then probably adopt it in their practice.
The Ashanti Regional Coordinator for the Research Extension Linkage Committee, REC, Dr. Ernest Murphy, is however calling on the government to provide farmers with the equipment to ease their burden.
With this anticipation, it is our hope that as we have witnessed today, and the farmers have shown that they have actually embraced the technology that came for. And then if the other needs that they are requesting, that seed should be made available to them. And they are also requesting and suggesting that if there are ways for government to meet them by providing them power tillers and mechanical threshers, which can help them to ease some labor challenges that they will go through in their fields, then rice productivity in the district is going to be improved. Not long ago, about a week ago, we took some agriculture officers also through some workshops that they would also sort of train other extension officers in their districts. And so we are also trying to do some kind of scaling out of the intervention of the technology so that all rice farmers in their district would also get to know this intervention. And it's our hope that if the needed support is given to Crop Research Institute, they will be able to make enough seeds of these varieties available coming the next season, and then the farmers will have access to the seeds to plant and then increase rice productivity. So,
for JoyNews.
All right, and that's it for business. Sports is coming up next. Stay tuned.